Hello, my name is Matthew, and just the other day I finished reading Homer and Langley by E.L. Doctorow. It's a really cool cover. You can see the two figures here, Homer and Langley. And I read this when it first came out in 2009, and it left a strong impression on me. I loved this book 15 years ago, and I often, after all this time, still find myself thinking about these two characters, and which I'll get to. But in fact, this subgenre of a two character novel is just one of my absolute favorite structures to tell a story. Like Don Quixote and Sancho Panza and Mercier and Camier by Beckett and Bouvard and Picochet by Flaubert and Homer and Langley. And these are siblings. These are brothers. It's a historical novel. It's a fictionalized retelling of their lives. The Collier brothers. Their last name was Collier, and they were famous Manhattan eccentrics. And if you know anything about the Collier brothers, you would know that they were famously hoarders, and they collected, or Langley in the book was hoarding and collected dozens of newspapers, New York newspapers in the morning, and dozens of newspapers every evening. It was amassing pianos and typewriters and a car in the living room. Uh, the novel, after rereading it, because I think about certain aspects of the book and that they were hoarders, rereading it and realizing there's a little bit more going on with this book, and I found myself with a greater appreciation of the novel. The dynamic of these two characters, what I appreciate most is that these are brothers that care about one another, and they rely on one another. And they spent practically their whole lives together, and they are brothers, but also firm, fast, lifelong friends. We don't have any drama or conflict in that relationship, and I really love that in a book when it happens. Daphne. Now, early on in the book, Langley gets sent off into World War One, and he comes back a changed man. He was he suffered the experience of being exposed to mustard gas, and it burned his lungs. He got sent back home, and he was never the same. He always had a rasp and a wheeze that he carried for the rest of his life. Homer, at a very early age, started losing his sight, and the story is told from the perspective. It's a story that Homer is writing, so it's an account from Homer's perspective, and he's losing his sight. And by the time he's a young adult, he's completely blind, and he's living in this house. Their parents have died, and they're in a mansion, I believe, on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. And there's a couple of things that happen in this book that I feel like fold into one another really well. And so these are eccentrics, and they turn out to be these kind of derelict characters in the eyes of normal, proper society. These are outsiders. Langley is always thinking about things and having projects and creating philosophies, and he has this idea. First starts off that he has this idea of a replacement theory that throughout history, everything is just replaced by something else. Somebody dies, they're replaced by somebody else. There's a genius in one century, there will be a genius in the next century. And Homer kind of pushes him on this theory, and so he decides to refine it. Eventually, he has this idea of an eternal, ever present newspaper. And the idea is that he's going to collect and curate a single newspaper that you can buy, and it would be the only newspaper that you would ever have to read. Every day, you can pick up the same newspaper and be completely up to date on all of the current affairs of the day. And in order to research this, he starts buying all of these newspapers. And the idea is that the events that are going to be the most likely to happen would be on the front page. And as events are less and less likely to happen, they would be further back in the newspaper, all the way to the back where you would have the obituaries section, where eventually you would find your own name. And he's collecting these newspapers every morning and every night, reading them, sorting them as research to put together this ever-present newspaper. This is the beginning of the hoarding. Things start piling up, and it's not immediately obvious. If you started reading this novel cold, didn't know anything about the Collier brothers, it wouldn't just be a novel of them amassing things and having long lists of outrageous collections that they've put into this house. Instead, it's almost a realistic depiction of how hoarding would begin. It would be imperceptible. You would just start having a stack of newspapers and then another stack of newspapers. And these details are early on in the novel just maybe mentioned here or there throughout a chapter, but enough for you to start thinking that there is clutter or that they're a bit untidy. And just like how hoarding would be in real life, there's going to be one day where you look around and you are entirely encased in clutter and mess, and it's almost like how did this happen? What was the moment? And the book reads, you can see these little things building until it's totally out of control. The other thing that I really appreciated reading this again is this idea of the eternal newspaper. And this book is also a microcosm type of novel where it's almost entirely set in this mansion in Manhattan. And we're experiencing nearly a century of events through Homer and Langley, and how they're all revolving around this mansion. We go through World War One and Prohibition and the Great Depression and World War II and the invention of the radio and television and nuclear weapons and nuclear war and the Vietnam War, and put together in this book that, like great literature, it is ever present. You can pick up the Iliad, and the specific events aren't happening right now, but it's fundamentally human and relatable for any generation and for any century. And I find this book that is showing the turning of events of a single century revolving around these two brothers in a single Manhattan mansion as a bit of showing what are all the biggest, most likely current affairs that happened in the course of about 100 years and how their attitudes change. And I just loved that nuance. If it was purposeful. I don't know, but I thought that was fantastic. By the end of the book, the last third, it really is the most memorable section of the book. It's what I left with, and it is the hoarding, when they've become these complete eccentric and famous characters. The public knows about them. The press is taking pictures of them. The neighbors are complaining about them. The health department is bringing them to court, and the fire department and the police department, and all of these things are reining in, and they are like these two Spartans holding everything back. With Langley brilliantly using legal maneuvers to keep them from losing their house. Eventually, they're concerned with intruders, people breaking in. At this point, the amassment in the house has gotten so extreme. There are tunnels, like an anthill, tunnels running through the house. They're setting up booby traps that would catch these intruders. One of the themes throughout the book is Homer's reality. Homer's defenselessness, the feeling that he has that being blind, he is always needing, requiring help. He's not sufficient on his own, and there's moments of the book that are just heartbreaking. Early on, they were having these speakeasy parties, and a police officer struck Homer. Langley yells at the police officer, "He's blind, you idiot!" And Homer, who was sighted at one point, is just completely downtrodden. I mean, he was hurt, but realizing he'll never know who hit him, and there's nothing that he can do about it. When these wars are going on, his brother went to war. He's in a position that he can't serve his country, and it's rather sad. Later on in the book, there's a New York City blackout, so everything goes black. And at this point in the book, they're now housing these hippies, and there's characters constantly going in and out of this mansion and in and out of their lives. But now they have a dozen hippies that are in the house, and it's completely cluttered, and it's a mess. The lights go out, and it's completely black. And now Homer to the rescue, because he's able to navigate through the house, and he's going through the house, and almost like a Congo line, people are attaching themselves to Homer for him to successfully get everybody out of the house. And it's entertaining, it's comedic, it's tragic. I just find this story endlessly fascinating, and this novel quite remarkable. I really enjoy this book. I'm glad I read it again, and I'm glad that I even have a higher appreciation of it. So let me know if you read Homer and Langley, or anything by E.L. Doctorow. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like. Take care.